So if you're looking for the panel, Humor Has It, Keeping the Fun in Mystery, you're in the right place. That's us. I'm author Julie Moffett, and I will be the moderator for this panel, but I'm also going to be a participant because I'm also an author, so I'll answer some of the questions as well. First, I'm going to do a brief intro of all of our panelists, and then we're going to talk for probably 20 minutes or so. We want to leave a little bit of time at the end for any questions that you may have, and then we're going to have to come to a hard stop at 9:50 Eastern Standard Time here. Now, having said that, the chat box, if you go down to the bottom of your screen, there is the chat box there. It will be open. I will be monitoring it during the panel. So if you want to type a question in at any time, feel free, and I will try to get as many of them as I can answered before the panel is over. Now, having said that, I would like to welcome and introduce you to our esteemed panel. First, I'd like to start with Melissa. Melissa waved, everybody. There's Melissa.
Hello, good morning.
Melissa is the national best-selling author of more than 20 mystery books, including the Book Magic Mysteries, the Lola Cruz Mysteries, a magical dressmaking mystery series, and the Bread Shop Mysteries, written as Winnie Archer. She is a former middle school English teacher who gave up the classroom in order to live in her imagination full-time. You go, girl. Melissa lives in North Carolina, with her educator husband, Carlos, and the youngest of their 5 children. Her newest releases are Murder in Devil's Cove, a book magic mystery, and coming on April 27th, Death Gone Awry, a Winnie Archer bread shop mystery.
That's right.
All right, Lynn Cahoon. Lynn, girl, wave, there she is. Lynn is a New York Times and a USA Today bestselling author. She writes The Tourist Trap, Cat Latimer, and Farm to Fork mystery series. One Poison Pie is the first book in the Kitchen Witch Cozy mystery series, which released in 2021, and is her first entry into the paranormal cozy mystery world. No matter where the mystery is set, readers are going to expect a fun ride with a Lynn Cahoon book. Okay. Next is Diane Kelly. Diane. Woo!
Here with bells on.
She is ready to go. Diane writes stories that feature feisty female lead characters and their furry four-footed friends. I can't believe you made me say that this morning.
Tongue twister. Early in the morning.
Four-footed friends. Diane is the author of over 30 novels and novellas, including The Death and Taxes, Paw Enforcement, and the House Flipper mystery series. In 2021, she'll launch 2 new series, the Southern Homebrew Moonshine series and the Mountain Lodge Mysteries. Diane's latest release is Murder with a View, the 3rd book in her House Flipper Cozy Mystery series. Yay! And I am Julie Moffett, and I am the author of the long-running Lexi Carmichael mystery series featuring geeks, spies, a nerd herd, and lots of international adventure. I also write a young adult spy mystery series called The White Knights, which is a spin-off of the Lexi Carmichael series, but is aimed at teens and preteens. My latest book, One Night Stand, came out in January of 2021 and is book 3 in the White Knight series. And my latest Lexi Carmichael release is No Questions Asked, which is book 12 in the series. So now that you've met us, we're going to talk a little bit about how we like to try to keep the fun in mystery. So the first question, and I'll start with Lynn, is, Lynn, how does humor enhance your work?
I thought a lot about this because I always think I'm not funny, but what I have is a real sarcastic sense of humor, maybe. Can everyone hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. I have a sarcastic sense of humor, so I like the twists on words and the joke that's taken a little too far. And the people that I work with, my characters, who are people to me, my imaginary friends, because they're all out there, they like that humor too. I mean, they're the ones who are going to get the joke when the heroine says it. Sometimes my readers don't. So I have to step back and say, is this really funny or is it just funny to me? Especially in today's climate, humor has changed over the years. So you have to be careful that you are expressing humor that's truly funny and not just something that you think is funny, or really re-examining your taste in what humor is. So I usually use, I don't want to go on with this forever, but I usually use humor in dialogue or in situations where it comes up and it's just like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening again. You know, because you cannot live in a town that has 29, or I'm writing number 15 in the tourist trap, 15 different murders in the last 3 years, and not think that something's going on that's funny in it. So
Yeah, Diane? You have anything to-
I think humor enhances my work in several ways. I would say the number one way is voice. Before I got published, I submitted my manuscripts to a bunch of writing contests, and I always got high scores in voice. You know, people liked that it was engaging, it was conversational. So I think humor kind of makes your writing feel accessible and very conversational. The other things that are kind of interrelated that I think it does are it provides the reader some comic relief. You know, we're writing mysteries and people die, and that can be very graphic and horrifying and upsetting. But the humor relieves some of that. You know, it helps to keep things light. And it also gives the reader a broader emotional experience. You know, they can feel sad and upset about the murder, but then they can also be laughing at something else. So they get to feel something while they're reading. And I think that pulls them in and engages them and entertains them.
Melissa, you have anything to add?
I would say that for me, the level of humor defines the entire tone of the book and the series. So I have one series in particular that's a lot more humorous than the others. And, you know, it takes it to a different kind of a mystery. It's more of a chick lit, caperish, fun mystery. And it's because of the humor that I've brought in through that character and through situations. A lot of my humor is situational, especially in my less humorous series. You know, you, like Diane said, you have a little bit of that to offset the trauma of, like you said, Lynn, so many murders in these small towns that who would want to live there if we didn't have a little levity.
Yes, I think that's great. And I think I also think humor enhances the work by making your characters more relatable. Because I mean, who hasn't done things and gotten themselves into crazy situations and just done outrageously crazy things to get out of certain situations? And I like to see myself in characters. So whenever I see somebody doing something that I've actually done in the past and hope nobody noticed or something, it makes me feel immediately related to that person. Like, oh my gosh, she did it too, you know, or he did it too, whatever. So I think that also adds a little element of that as well.
That's a great point. Don't tell our mothers.
Hi, Mom. I think my mom's on. I actually think my mom is in here somewhere. So hi, Mom. Okay, so let's start with Melissa. Melissa, how hard is it to write good humor?
Speaking only for myself, because I, like Lynn, don't consider myself a particularly funny person in real life. I like to say that I save all of my wit for my books. And since it doesn't come supernaturally, it can be challenging. But like I said, I guess unlike you, Lynn, who you have the quick witticisms and the sarcasm, I use more situational humor. So, for example, I have my books handy this time. In Bare Naked Lola, which is the third Lola Cruz mystery, I have Lola and her cousin-in-law in a nudist resort, because that is part of where the plot takes them. And Lola has to decide, is she or isn't she going to go like the natives? And then I come from the era of I Love Lucy. So I had this image in my mind of these characters of Lola and Lucy darting from bush to bush, you know, to hide. And so the humor becomes really situational for me. And I picture those types of scenes like a movie playing in my head. And so that helps me to, you know, to kind of hone in on that humor, especially in my humorous series.
Diane or Lynn, either one want to add something to that?
I tend to be a bit of a goofball, so some of the just light little banter and stuff comes pretty easily and naturally to me. In fact, I was kind of surprised to discover that I had a funny voice when I started writing. I didn't necessarily think, oh, I'm setting out to write something funny, but that's just what happened naturally. But some of the scenes are very hard, and some of them take probably 5 times longer than it is to write a more you know sad scene, because you guys have probably heard of comedic timing. When you've got a stand-up comedian, they can boom bah deliver exactly how they want those words to be delivered, and we can't control how the reader reads our work or the pacing of that. So trying to control that comedic timing can be hard, which means your words have to be chosen very carefully. The cadence of the language has to be done very carefully. And how the pacing of it, everything has to be just perfect for it to come off right and not fall flat.
Well, and I think for me, it's an issue of, does it feel funny for me? And I think it has to really, my thing isn't moving when I talk. So are people seeing me? Can you guys answer on the?
Yeah. We're seeing you.
Okay.
Yeah, we see you and hear you. No problem.
Well, you guys can, but I don't know if they can.
Yeah, everyone's.
Yep, they're saying they can see you.
Okay, good. Okay, I was just freaking out about the technology. I do this every day. You would think that I would be okay with this, but no. This is my other personality. But what I was thinking about when you guys were talking, was the issue of, as a writer, maybe some people are more okay with writing the humor than being the humor, because I'm more of an introvert. That is my natural personality. You don't notice that when I'm out and about and seeing people, which I haven't seen people for a year, so it's okay. But I am also an introverted comedian, because I will leave a situation and go, oh, I should have said.
I'm the same way.
And the best thing about writing is you go, oh, I should have said, and then you can go back into your manuscript and say it.
Exactly.
And so it's perfect. And so that's why I love humor in my writing.
I'm with you 100%.
Yeah. I would just say I'm more of an extrovert, and yet I think that for me, it's hard to write humor, write it well, because what's funny for me may not be funny for somebody else. It could just be completely lame somewhere else. So, and it's not really, a lot of people think, oh, you just throw a lot of jokes in there and things like that. That is not organic writing for humor. No. Humor has to be super organic. It has to be brought on by not only the character's personality, but also the events in the story. So, one question that just came through that was really good was, do you add humor in the first draft, or do you look for places for it when you're editing? And I thought that's a great question, because actually I do both. So, and I don't know about the rest of you guys, but
same here.
Yeah, sometimes it's just, again, it just comes from the situation. You can have a really serious situation, and you can lighten the levity of the situation with a little bit of humor. Like, I always think of that, the movie The Terminator with Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, this guy's going killing everybody, but he has these one-liners that are so funny, and they just like lift that second of like huge tension. I'll be back. I'm sure I didn't say that right, but and you're just like dying laughing, but it's like, it really engages people. And so I try to look for those little moments where I can add that one-liner or some kind of thing. But sometimes, I would say most of the time for me, it just comes organically from the situation. But that was a great question. So, okay. And another question that came in actually was, what other books or TV shows or movies inspire writing humor for you guys? So for us, I guess. So what, is there any TV show or movie or something that has sort of given you some inspiration for helping to incorporate humor into your books?
For me, Castle was huge, because I just loved the Castle character, and he was so funny. And if I wanted a character like that, because I often picture the actor who would play my characters, and so I hear them. And so if I have a character that's modeled after Castle, then I can sort of tap into his cadence and his way of bringing levity to a situation, just the lens that he sees things through. So there are a couple of series, but Castle's the one for me that comes to mind.
For me, it's we're doing a rewind of all of the Marvel Universe movies, and that's organic humor and situational humor. And so, especially like Guardians of the Galaxy, there are so many places where they slip in just this humorous spot into a really serious situation, like how they open the one movie with Groot dancing to the music while the fight's going on. That's organic humor. How do you find those places? And I don't tend to just go, I'm watching this for this reason, but now that we're talking about it, I think I am watching that for that reason, because it has allowed me to think about different ways to insert humor into the dialogue. I'm a rewriter humor too, because I want to I do it in first draft, but I also want to make sure while I'm rereading it for the 15th or 20th time before I turn it in, or after I turn it in and it comes back, and all those type of things. But I want to make sure that the situation matches the past and the future. And sometimes when you're writing in chunks. I write about 2,000 a day. So you're writing in a chunk, so you don't remember what happened yesterday or 2 weeks ago when you were writing. So reading it through is where you can slip in that humor and make sure it's all continuity.
And when you laugh out loud at your own stuff, you know you've hit it.
Especially when you know what's coming, sometimes it's like, I'm still laughing at this joke, it must be good. But Melissa touched on a show for me that was, a classic, the I Love Lucy. She was so funny and just so unapologetically who she was. I loved that. And I tend to like, for TV shows, for inspiration, and movies are things that are very character driven. I loved Schitt's Creek. All of those characters were just over the top, funny characters. Resident Alien is one of my new favorites. That's just hilarious.
That is good. That's a good.
Yeah. If anybody out there hasn't watched that, watch Resident Alien. It's a hoot.
We started the first one too.
Yeah. So a lot of character driven stuff for me is where, because to me, my stories kind of always start with the character. My ideas always start with a character and then develop from there.
Modern Family too. That's a new one for me. It's such an old show, but we've just discovered it because now it's on Hulu. But again, it comes down to those real life moments that they make funny and that you can relate to. Like you said, Lynn, earlier, if you can relate to that character, then it's resonated with you as a reader. And so for me as a viewer, all the parental family humor that's in there, I just love. And I can imagine pulling from that at some point.
I see in the chat room, somebody mentioned Carol Burnett, and I loved that show as a kid too. She was so good at all those different characters she did. Those were hilarious.
Well, and the group. And I think that's something we haven't talked about, how your characters work together with the other characters on screen. I mean, I call them my crew, my team, a whole bunch of different descriptors for it, but those people that are with your characters day by day, they're the ones that they're going to work off of. I think of the Carol Burnett and the Harvey Korman and
John Knotts.
Knotts. No, not Knox, but the other guy. I'll think of him.
Tim Conway, Harvey Korman, Lyle Wagner,
and
Vicki Lawrence.
He's talking about visiting the elephant. And the other three are dying on the couch, and they're trying to stay in character, and they can't because he's just killing them. And that's what I want with my characters. I want them to live and be happy in their little towns, even though there's murder all around. I want them to laugh about it, not laugh about the murder, but maybe sometimes. But yeah, that interaction of people is the thing that gives you the strong humor in the books too, I think, and in the movies.
Great. Another question that came up was, do you ever write a funny passage that you love, but that your editor makes you take out? And if they do you fight it, or do you listen to your editor? And so since I asked a question, I'm going to go first. I would say 95% of the time I take it out because I really trust my editor, and I've been one of those few people that have had the same editor for all 13 books in my series. And that's pretty rare in the publishing world to have the same editor. So I really trust her intuitively. On a rare occasion, I will put my foot down and say, no, it really, yeah, I really want this. But I would say most of the time I fold. I don't know about you guys.
I actually had an editor tell me to crank it up before because that's kind of my signature. It's my, that's what people come to my books for. So one of my books was a little too serious and I had to crank it up. I will say with my new Moonshine series that's launching later this year, it's with a different house and a different publisher. She wasn't sure about something at the end and kind of just sort of questioned it, didn't say take this out, but questioned it. And I said, my readers will like this. It is a little goofy, but this is what my readers expect from me. So, and she trusted me on that too. It's a give and take, with the editors, but I do agree generally, you do trust your editor with, their decisions.
Yeah, I'm like Julie, I've had the same editor for all 30 plus of my books.
Wow.
And so she's my guiding light on everything that, if I'm trying to bring something from the kids or the newer generation in and I do it wrong, she goes, yeah, no, that didn't work, But I trust her vision for the book. I know she gets me and she's always got me. She was the first one to buy me. So, she was the second one to buy me. But I trust her. So if she says it's not funny, I'm going to say, okay, sorry, and take it out.
I haven't really had that situation, but like I said, only one of my series has a bit stronger humor than the others. So yeah, the humor that I put in my subsequent books and my other series, my bread shop and my dressmaking and the book magic, they really are, those moments really are to bring levity to those murder mysteries. So I haven't had any missteps really.
I will say, though, I did have experiences with agents that wanted me to dial it down. And it was before I got the agent that I have now. And they both were trying to turn me into more of a romantic suspense writer, which I am not. And I was, hadn't been published yet. So I trusted them, took the humor out, and it just didn't feel like me. So if you are an aspiring writer, you have to learn to trust yourself too and trust who you are. And then you will find, it's kind of like finding the person you marry, finding your right editor and your right agent who get you. I think it was Lynn who said that, because they have to get what you're doing, what you're trying to accomplish, and you have to mesh. And then once you do, then usually there's not a whole lot of conflict. There might be a few little things along the way, but that's real important to have the same style or agree on what your style and tone and voice are going to be.
Yeah. And what you want your book to be. I had the exact same situation. I had my very first agent. She wanted my Lola Cruise series to be something entirely different, much more romance, much less mystery, much less humor. And so we did that and it never sold. And then I ended up with a different agent, took it back to where it was supposed to be in my voice, and it sold right away. So yeah, you have to be true to yourself and write what's in you.
Yeah.
Another question that came through is, how do we feel about running gags in our series? I'm going to start. Yeah, running gags. Yeah, I have quite a few. Yeah. And like for one, my heroine in the Lexi Carmichael mystery series is a geek. And so she has a little spreadsheet, which she calls her spreadsheet, her little black cloud spreadsheet, where she keeps a running list of everything that possibly has gone bad, could gone bad, statistics, the whole 9 yards that goes with it. And this is sort of her thing that she has with her, so that every time she's in a crazy situation, she's like, gotta add that to the spreadsheet kind of thing. So I love those. They have to be used very sparingly, though. I think you can really overdose on those. But I think one or two, again, that make your character relatable to, people that have similar quirks or qualities really does make your character unique, original, and relatable.
I think the running gag too makes the readers feel like they're in on an inside joke because they get it. When it pops up, they're like, oh, I've heard this before. One of the examples, I actually teach a humor workshop. And one of the examples I give is from The Big Bang Theory, where they refer back to the roommate agreement and to Sheldon saying, I'm not crazy, my mother had me tested. Some of those things you feel like, oh, there it is again. And you feel like you're kind of in there with the group. So I think it's effective for that.
Well, and it also defines your character. I mean, your character, if she starts doing that spreadsheet in book 1, she's not going to stop doing it in book 10 just because it's a running gag. It's who she is. And I think that's something that you have to make sure that you're true to that character and they don't kind of blur into, well, I write several series and write them all through the year. So I'm always thinking, is this Jill? Is this,
Yeah.
Mia? Is this Kat? Because I'm still writing Kat, and is this what she would do in this situation? And I think having those little quirky things that that this is that person really helps define that person and bring her back on the screen.
So what are your favorite humor techniques? So what are the things that you like to do, I guess, besides the running gag, which we've already discussed, but what are some other kind of techniques that you use to keep the fun in your mysteries?
For me, it's like I said earlier, situational. So whenever I can, a couple of times throughout a book, I will put my characters into some sort of uncomfortable situation that will automatically lead to some sort of humor, whether it's climbing the wall into the funeral parlor, which happened in one of the bread shop books, and just how do you do that? How are you going to get over this wall in the complete darkness in order to get to what you need to get to? And that lends itself to humorous moments, so it's darting from bush to bush, it's jumping into a dumpster to dumpster dive for some clue or something. So for me, it's almost always situational in that respect.
I'd say I'm kind of almost the opposite of that. I like wordplay, so I do some wordplay, especially in my descriptions. I've had a few readers in their reviews say that they like my descriptions, that they're funny, and that's always a great place. But I'm looking for, when I do the going back and trying to find places to add humor, I think description is always a great place to add humor. A couple places, I remember one time I described a character, and she had kind of pinkish orange hair, and it was real fluffy, and she was wearing this gold lame dress at a party, and I said she looked like a cross between the heat miser and Cleopatra. And I was like, oh, that's perfect. That was a perfect description. And then some of the wordplay, I described another character as more LL Bean than LL Cool J. That was kind of a wordplay and description combined. That's a place where I like to put some humor.
I think for me, it's more just like what happened in the chat. I mean, we had a line of zeros, and it's like somebody's cat's on the keyboard, and because my cat has been on the keyboard, or my cat has walked through when I'm on the Zoom with the head honcho from Enterprise, and it's like, oh, great. And he goes, oh my God, there's a cat. It's like, sorry, it's mine. Those type of things. I don't know that I have humor techniques because I haven't studied it. But what I want to do is I want to make sure it, like Julie was talking about, is it's their life, and it's what happens to me is probably going to show up on the page. And it's fun that way because you can look at things and put them on your spreadsheet. I love that. I love that idea. How something that bad happens in your life, you can switch it and make it something funny.
The animals too, like, I don't know if you can hear, but my pug is over here snoring. And I have a pug in one of my series, and I have goats in another series. So they always bring in a little bit of humor whenever you need it.
Here's all the animals from my stories. I have stuffed animals to represent every single one of them, that they come with me to book signings and events, and they live up there together.
I would just want to add too, in my case, my characters are all very geeky. They're super, super smart, but they really don't have, what we would call, easy social skills. So this is very difficult for them to navigate. And it just lends itself to humor because, these people are trying so hard. And what comes easy for us doesn't always come easy for everyone. For some people, it's just so difficult to navigate those things or to interpret social skills. And I think personalities can be a great reflection of humor. And also it's because in a way, once you get to know these characters, you're rooting for them to figure it out. You want them to succeed, you want them to grow. And it also allows you to grow your characters emotionally, but also socially, and also with the story, the things that happen to them, how they adapt. And when you're writing a long series, you really have to pay attention to your character arc, because if your characters go stale and they don't grow and they don't mature and they don't, learn new things, then they're not interesting anymore. So one of the most important things I think about writing a long series is you have to start with a character arc. This is my main character. This is how she is here. And this is how I want her to be at the end of the series. This is
no matter how many books that is.
No matter how many books that is, this is kind of where I want to see her. And not that she's going to lose who she is, but that she's going to find out more of who she is, or he is, or whoever your main character is. Even if it's a cat, who the cat is, whatever character you have, they're going to grow. They're going to be interesting over the whole series. So I think that's important. Okay.
We often don't know how long those series are going to be. That might be something, because I've heard people, people have asked me, well, how many books are going to be in your series? And the answer usually is, we don't know. It depends on, where our publisher wants to take them, and how sales are, and a bunch of different factors.
Right, because we get but 2, 3, 4 books if we're lucky in a contract. Yeah.
Okay, another question. Do your characters from different series have different senses of humor? Good question.
Well, that's a good one too, because I thought something Lynn said earlier made me think that about when you are writing humor, you have to write it kind of from the point of view of the different characters. Everybody's sense of humor is going to be a little bit different. So where somebody might make a joke or a pun a certain way, somebody else, their experience is going to lead them to do it a different way. Like I'm writing a character now and he's a handyman. And when a woman's responding to him about something he did, she's like, "You nailed it." And so that humor was specifically geared toward that character, because him nailing something, that's what he does for a living. So I forgot actually what the question was now, but it led me to say that.
Do your characters have different senses of humor?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Mine definitely do. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, they become themselves, right? They're, like you said, Lynn, they're your people, right? They're so real to you. And they are to me. And so they are individuals, and they have personalities, and they have backgrounds and families and experiences that define them. And so their humor is definitely different. Who Lola Cruz is incredibly different than who Ivy Culpepper is, for example. They're entirely, the world view that they have and the lens that they see things through is drastically different. So their humor has to reflect that.
I would say yes, that my characters have different sense of humors, but I think there's a brand that you have as an author that they would all be friends. Let's put it that way, because they're not going to be this person way over here that would be more comfortable in a romantic suspense erotica, and this person over here who's going to be the granny knitting the booties. And I've turned down authors who've asked me to do a blurb for them because they didn't fit my brand. And so they may have different sense of humor, but it's going to be within a certain world vision. Even though I've got 4 different worlds, soon to be 5 different worlds. So I think because it's me who's writing them, I don't know what I don't know. So I can't take someone and write something that I don't know. But I can twist it so that they have their own personality and they have their own view on the world.
But it's still all coming through your lens.
But it's all coming through my lens, and it's all what I've experienced versus or think what an experience would be sometimes.
Yeah. That's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. Like my Tara Holloway book, all my characters are women in non-traditional roles, which I love that. So they're all kind of feminists in their own way. Tara Holloway is over the top and super sassy and feisty. Megan's a little more cerebral, a little more reserved. And then Whitney is just kind of girl next door, but she's a carpenter. So she's still got that feminist worldview. But that was a great point, Lynn. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They're still within a range.
They're still within a range.
And the worldview, Melissa. Yeah, they have a similar worldview.
So we're coming up. We have about just about 5 minutes left. So if you have any questions, please type them in to the chat group now, or the chat box now, and I will try to get to them. We just had another question came through that asked us, what's the funniest cozy mystery title? Not the book, just the title that we've ever seen that sort of made us laugh.
Not of our own.
It could be of your own or somebody else's.
I'm terrible on the spot, so I'm prefer.
This was not a prepared question.
No, and I'm like, okay, I can't. I don't remember what I'm reading at the moment, let alone.
Well, I'll tell you, I don't have the funniest one, but I will tell you, when I first wrote my first book, I made in the Lexi Carmichael series, I decided my character, who's a geek, she's also a James Bond fan. And so I made, she's a James Bond geek. And so I made the title of my first book in the series, No One Lives Twice, which is a play off the James Bond book. And then every book after that starts with the word no, no woman left behind, no one to trust, no money down, no, everything starts with no. And then after that was kind of set in stone, I woke up in the middle of the night one night freaking out because I thought, oh my God, I just gave the reviewers a great chance to say no to the No series. No, and I was just totally freaking out. Like, what did I do?
I think the funniest one I did, I started the Farm to Fork series, and I thought, I'm going to do twists on business books. And so the first one is Who Moved My Goat Cheese, which I love.
Funny.
It's so funny. It's so cute. And then I got the second book, and it's like, there's no other fun business title. I mean, and I still try to pull some out. I mean, and I've worked with Of Murder and Men instead of Mice and Men.
7 Habits of Highly Successful Celery.
That's a good one. If you had that series,
You can have it.
Okay,
Say of mine, my favorite one was my very first book, Death, Taxes, and a French Manicure. And it used a humor technique called the rule of 3, which is, you list 3 things in a list, and they can be, multiple word things, but the first 2 are taking the person in one direction, and then the third turns them all around. So death and taxes are bad things, but then a French manicure, it's like, what does that have to do with it? It's kind of like, he's tall, dark, and gruesome, as an example. And one of my favorite examples of the rule of 3 was from Saturday Night Live years ago when they had the Cuisinart, it just came out, the food processors, and they were a big thing. And they did a fake commercial, kind of a mock commercial. And they said, it slices, it dices, it circumcises. So that's another example of the rule of 3.
That's so
That
funny.
gives you a whole new perspective on the Cuisinart. Oh man.
It really does. I was thinking the same thing. Now I'm starting to be hungry. Okay.
I'll never be hungry again.
Somebody has asked, are we all traditionally published, or are we hybrids, traditionally and self-published? And so I will start. I am both. I've been traditionally published for a long time. I've actually published my first book in 1993, and there's probably tons of people in here that weren't even born yet. But so I've been mostly traditionally published. In 2017, I dipped my first toe into self-publishing, and it's been a wonderful experience. So I'm hybrid. So I don't know about the rest of you.
Same for me. So I have my 3 traditionally published series, Dressmaking, Bread Shop, Lola Cruz. And then just this last year, I also dipped my toe into indie publishing with my book, Magic Mysteries. And she's Pippin, named after Peregrine from Tolkien, is a bibliomancer. So this is my indie published. So yeah, I'm hybrid also. And so far it's been fun. You just have a new level of control over everything, which is scary, but also fun.
And a lot more work. I'm hybrid also. My first 3 series and my next 2 are all traditional. But I had this book that I had written before I got published, Busted, and I just loved this character, and I wanted to bring her to life. And so I went ahead and published this, and then I loved the concept. It's a female motorcycle cop, so I did 2 novellas after that. So it's a very loose series. It's a different character in each book, but based on concept. But yeah, it is interesting, and it's just a different world right now, where I think diversification is good for an author's career. You can use your indie books to push your traditional books to bring in more readers. You can play with the pricing on those. So that control thing that Melissa mentioned, it helps you with the business side, I think, of things, because you do have more control over the business part of those.
It's a double-edged sword, though, because you don't have the support of your traditional publishing house, but still, it's a learning curve. But
it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
hybrid.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm hybrid as well. I started in romance, so I took all of my romance and when I got the rights back, I moved them into self-publishing. So I've been playing with that, but I'm starting all of my cozy mysteries so far have been traditionally published with the one editor and the one house. But now I am taking one of them. I got the rights back to write forward in, so I'm taking those and starting to try it out with my own name. So I will be doing self-publishing with the Cat Latimer series. So
that's exciting.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I'm so sorry, but it is 9:50 and we have a hard stop at 9:50, but I'm so glad that you guys all came. I'm sorry we weren't able to answer every question. I hope we got most of them answered for you, and we really appreciate you. A lot of you getting up really early this morning.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we had a great time. So we hope that you learned a little something about keeping it fun in mysteries, and we hope that you'll check out all of our books. And all of us are available on Facebook, our websites, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. We're everywhere, so it should be easy to find us. And at any time, you can just contact us, ask us questions. We're all pretty friendly. So thanks again. We really appreciate you coming.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
And thanks to Katie Kelly, too, for organizing this.
Thanks to our fearless leader, Katie Kelly.
Yay.